Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Today's warehouse needs to keep inventory moving smoothly and quickly. Meet these challenges with on-demand warehouse labeling from Brother Mobile Solutions. Our mobile and industrial printers will help optimize your operations to achieve the speed, reliability, and durability your warehouse needs. With easy integration for existing warehouse technology, convenient portability, and upfront affordability, Brother Mobile Solutions is at your side when it comes to warehouse labeling. Try one for free today by visiting brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse or click the link in the show notes. That's brothermobilesolutions.com/new warehouse to try one for free today.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I am going to be joined by Solomon Zakinov. He is the founder and CEO of ShipX, and ShipX is helping to address some of shippers' problems regarding parcel shipments, and he's bringing his warehouse and operations background into this to help shippers deal with some of those problems. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about ShipX, how he kind of came to found this company and some of the problems they're solving and how their technology works, and you know what's really going on in the parcel shipping market when it comes to some of the bigger players and some of the disruption that's happening. So Solomon, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Kevin. Thanks. Excited to be on with you.
Definitely happy to have you on. Happy to kind of hear about ShipX and how it works, and definitely how you got to ShipX in your career. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how that kind of led you to founding this company called ShipX?
Yeah, I'd love to. I started out in e-commerce. It was actually my first kind of foray into business in general.
Mm-hmm.
I always, I guess you could say, was entrepreneurial, or
okay.
I guess a better way to put it is I just like making money. So,
okay.
So when I was selling things online from a pretty young age, and I enjoyed doing that. It was fun. Different things, predominantly computer hardware. Did some stuff in fashion apparel. It was also pretty cool. And my first foray into kind of the logistics world, in e-commerce, you do kind of get a crash course, right? Because you got to make sure you get products to customers, you got to warehouse it, you got to store it. You got to make sure at the end of the day that, the customer isn't, the order isn't complete until the customer either leaves you a good review or no review, right? So, so that was kind of my first foray into the logistics, learning about, how to ship a package, how to print a label. And about 10 years ago or so, I got more into kind of the warehousing side when my brother started a fulfillment center called Ruby Has Fulfillment. Back then, 10 years ago, right. It was, literally basically just him.
Yeah.
And, he was shipping some of my stuff out. And ultimately, as we were kind of, shipping out, he had an e-commerce business, I had an e-commerce business. It just made a lot of sense for him to bring on some of his buddies that needed to warehouse stuff as well. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately what culminated in basically me starting to sell warehousing services.
Okay.
For, this burgeoning fulfillment center. At the time, it was just when Shopify was starting out, WooCommerce was starting out.
Yeah, early.
And really kind of growing that whole CMS movement of, create your own e-commerce brand. The digitally native brands were just kind of becoming cute, big. That's before you had, your $1 billion digitally native brands like Casper and all these other really cool companies that exist today. But ultimately, it was a really good time to be in warehousing, and particularly in e-commerce fulfillment. And we specialized in that. We specialized in bringing in companies that needed to move goods from a DC to the customer's door versus, the traditional warehousing at the time. 99% of fulfillment centers were just doing B2B fulfillment predominantly. So we were able to bring on a lot of companies that grew with us, a lot of cool digitally native brands that ended up in their own right becoming, worth hundreds of millions of dollars and scaling significant companies with literally probably hundreds of employees at this point. So I did that for many, many years. Well, I guess it wasn't too long. I think it was about 7 years until I decided to get into kind of my next foray into logistics, which is ShipX now. And that it was inspired by my time doing some consulting for a small, obscure final mile delivery company here in the Northeast. And what I learned was that companies and retailers are really looking for alternative delivery solutions in the marketplace. And there wasn't a lot of them. There at the time, maybe LaserShip and OnTrack were being used by a lot of major, huge retailers, but not by the mid-size retailers, and definitely not by the smaller ones. And then this was all exacerbated tremendously by COVID, right? Where the demand, right, for home delivery significantly outpaced the supply at the time. So there's an insatiable need for delivery services. There was never a better time to either be a warehouse or a delivery company. And obviously helping get products that were of vital importance to a lot of people to their homes. So that's kind of the idea behind ShipX, is this company that takes all these disparate assets all across the United States and combines them under one platform, one ecosystem, to be able to execute final mile delivery for retailers, digitally native brands, and all sorts of companies that ultimately need to get a product to a doorstep.
Very interesting. And you said in there, these retailers and digitally native brands were looking for alternatives to figure out a way to complete this final mile, right, the delivery. So what do you think was really driving that? Because obviously we know, the final mile, the big players, right, like FedEx, UPS, USPS are out there. But, essentially I think what you're saying is they were looking for alternatives to that. So what was really driving that? Like why were they looking for alternatives?
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to remember is UPS and FedEx predominantly was doing B2B delivery until also the explosion of e-commerce, right? So their networks are set up for that. In the U.S., a tremendous amount of parcels delivered predominantly by the post office, especially stuff under 10 pounds, and most of e-com is under 10 pounds typically. Yeah. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, right? Those mattress in a box companies and other companies that sell bigger stuff that have found a lot of success online as well. But predominantly, it's a sub 10 pound stuff being delivered by the post office. So, UPS and FedEx, they want to handle the higher yield, higher margin stuff. They want to go with the stuff that they could charge more for. And there's kind of this gap in the market in general for still fast, well serviced parcel delivery, but that uses an alternate to the post office, because the post office doesn't really have a customer service element. They don't really have as good tracking. And especially with Amazon, consumers are just demanding faster and faster delivery. I think that's kind of slowed down a bit, where companies are still obviously trying to get packages to their customers in the fast amount of time. But right now it's kind of come down to more of a bigger balance between service and price. Whereas, a lot of companies are looking particularly, let's say, just for price or just for service. Now, what you see in the market is mainly retailers targeting a mix of both, and you're never going to get the perfect balance. That's kind of the funny thing, right? You're kind of treading on water, right? But the idea is that that's what they're looking for, and when you're searching for that, you got to always look out for all the new options in the market. And there's a lot of really great companies, both in final mile and otherwise in logistics, helping to kind of execute and succeed in that mission.
Interesting. So I mean, how do you think? Because we talked about your background here, right? And you're coming from the point of being the shipper, right? So you're kind of change gears where you're going from being the shipper, and now you start this company which is dealing with the carriers essentially, right? So how do you think your experience of being on the side of trying to get delivery to your customers helps you to better build out this solution on the shipping side?
That's a great question. I think ultimately understanding what an e-commerce retailer, what kind of experience they want to deliver to their customers is very, very important. We have to remember that these days the experience factor is really how these, D2C brands differentiate themselves, and even the bigger retailers, right? They want to differentiate themselves from the other retailers that they have to compete against, right? And they do that by providing, the best customer experience, and obviously a big part of that is the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
So on the warehousing side, we were able to do that by making sure orders were always going out in an extremely fast time, right? And our operational efficiency was, in that regard, was incredible, right? We were always able to make sure that if a customer ordered before 2 p.m., let's say, they were able to get the package at least shipped that same day, right? And that allowed our customers upstream to be able to now tell their customers, just make sure you order before 2 and it'll be shipped same day, right? So that we were able to add those layers of customer experience, right? And we try to do the same thing on the final mile side, right? Where we try to execute delivery, very in a time-sensitive manner. Depending on the region, we can narrow it down to a specific day, and we can provide a photo proof of delivery like Amazon does, right? These are the types of things that ultimately enhance the customer experience and also differentiate us from the bigger national players, right? The post office, UPS, FedEx. That added layer of customer experience is really the main way to define yourself, especially as you're trying to build out kind of a category that's been so long dominated by a duopoly, right? Like FedEx and Amazon, FedEx and UPS.
Yeah. Interesting. And so, I think those things that you touched on there, like, more visibility for the customer and like you said, the photo delivery proof and things like that. And you mentioned Amazon. I mean, obviously Amazon kind of, pushes the consumer mindset on what to expect, right? And they kind of put the consumer in that place. And obviously it's something that, UPS and FedEx and the Postal Service they're not doing that kind of thing, right? I mean, they're behind in that sense, I would say. So very interesting that you're addressing those through ShipX. But tell us a little bit about how the ShipX technology actually works, and what does the platform look like, or how does it really match you up with the right final mile solution?
Yeah, so I think it just from if you were to think about it, kind of when you order an Uber, right, and if you have a problem, the way I like to describe it is you don't go to the LLC that that owns that Uber, or the person that's driving that car, right? You go to Uber, right, and they deal with your problem. So ShipX is the same thing, right? So in other words, we live entirely, we handle all those problems for our customers directly. So when they deal with us, as far as what happens downstream, that our technology takes over and we route that package based on availability, based on geography, based on service, the service, how fast we need to get it there, or how fast can we get it there, right, based on customer expectations, and so on and so forth, right? So that all happens downstream. But really where it provides a seamless experience is when the order is placed and let's say there is a problem, they don't have to go and now try to contact 30 different carriers, right? It's all seamless, all through us, and it's all a unified experience, right? In other words, the tracking is displayed on our sites. The analytics via our dashboard is all kind of one, clear cut view and graph, right, of where your packages are and when are they getting delivered and which are the packages that are delayed because of weather or because of some other occurrence that might be happening at the time. So that's really the main goal of ShipX is to be able to provide kind of that seamless user experience, right, where you connect with us via an API. We're now integrated with ProShip and Octane, so the company Octane, the owner of ShipStation and ShipEngine. So the company can integrate to us as well pretty seamlessly. So after that integration period happens, ultimately, as long as we have pricing in place, you can print out labels. All the labels will look exactly the same. It won't be you having to sort to 30 different carriers. We handle that all downstream. You won't have to worry about routing the packages, none of it, right? You just print out your labels at the warehouse level, and your experience is just as good as you would, at least at the warehouse level. It's basically the same thing you would have with FedEx and UPS, where you're printing labels and you're giving out, waiting for end of day for us to come and pick it up. And we made an acquisition last year for a middle mile trucking and transportation company, so that we can better handle that part, because earlier on we realized that our biggest roadblock for executing a lot of these deliveries in a seamless manner was that we weren't really managing the truck part of it, right? We were kind of giving that away to another third party, but now we run that experience in-house, which really also allows us to be, separate ourselves from a lot of the other final mile solutions in the marketplace, where again, it's seamless.
Okay.
We also have a much larger footprint. So that's another cool factor, right? We have a much larger footprint covering about 70% of the United States. So
interesting. So really, you guys are picking up the packages and then you're taking them to a sortation hub. Is that how it's working? Or
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Right. We would take the packages, we would sort them, and then we would ultimately distribute them amongst all of the carriers within our network, right? And the reason why this works really well is because these carriers, as a standalone, typically have smaller networks in most cases, and they typically can't really work with the retailers themselves because it's kind of this unique situation of the retailer is not having enough volume and the carrier is not having enough reach. So we kind of bridge that gap between the shipper and the carrier, and we sit pretty comfortably there in the middle. You know, a lot of people say, why can't they just go to the carriers themselves? Because carriers can't really service these shippers by themselves. Yeah, in most cases, right? Also, a lot of times the shippers themselves don't have enough volume. So that's another thing, right? We're able to bridge that gap because typically we have a larger pickup footprint in a certain geography, and then why have to manage as a shipper? Why manage all of these carrier relationships if you don't have to? So it's kind of a mixed thing of different solutions that we put into place depending on customer profile, footprint, and the type of boxes that the customer is shipping.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because you look at it and like you're talking about, I mean, if you're saying like, as a shipper, like, why can't I just go directly to those carriers? But a lot of times those smaller carriers are just regionalized, and, they may deliver faster for you than like a UPS or FedEx, but you're looking at now potentially to get full coverage that like you would have with ShipX. You're having to work with like how many different number of these small like regional carriers and managing those pickups and the sortation on your own and all those things. So having like an aggregate like you guys makes a lot more sense to be able to do that a lot smoother and kind of harness the power of the entire network there that you built out. So are companies like that you're working with, do you see them like, previously they were doing majority of volume like through FedEx, UPS, USPS, and now like they're pushing more towards like utilizing something like a ShipX like you guys?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
So every retailer will still need a national relationship, right? And most likely some kind of a postal delivery, delivery option as well. Yeah. Where we sit is, kind of very strategically in the sense that you don't want to only rely on the nationals, and you definitely don't want to only rely on the post office. You do want to have a blend, as you would with anything. When you're procuring something, you always want to have, multiple ways of getting to your end goal, right? So, procurement managers are typically doling out 20-30% of their volumes to alternate delivery companies. Again, there's the more traditional kind of regional companies like LaserShip and so on that are still obviously growing, and then there are companies like us, and other kind of newer players in the space that have come along to help solve the volume challenges. Also, again, even though you would need a national, you would need a postal delivery solution. Sometimes our solutions sit in a unique place where we can offer like delivery solutions for boxes and package sizes that are maybe just not a good fit for both either the nationals or even the post office. An example of that could be if something is really too big for either of those solutions, but not big enough to put on an LTL, we have some kind of a solution for that. Some other alternate delivery companies might have as well. Ultimately, it's kind of a mix of needing to diversify as you would in any other, part of your business where you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, as well as just really really having better solutions than what exists today, either with ShipX or, there's other companies doing some cool stuff out there as well.
Interesting. Okay. Very cool. And I was curious about that because this is like a conversation I had a couple of times with people in my network now. It's, we're looking at, especially like there's so much, talk about like the rate increases, right, for FedEx and UPS. So, I mean, it seems like this parcel shipping market it's kind of like, it's like ripe for like some real disruption, right? So being that like you're kind of in the mix of it, with ShipX, I'm curious, like from your standpoint, like where do you see the parcel shipping market heading, like in the next couple of years? Like, do you think that, one of these top 3 nationals will get kind of like dethroned from the top and somebody's going to move into that spot, maybe ShipX? So hopefully, that would be good, right, for you. But I mean, what do you think is going to happen like over the next couple of years? Because there's certainly a lot going on in that area, and things are changing, and it doesn't seem that necessarily the nationals like are necessarily changing with what's kind of expected in the market now.
Yeah, and I think you already kind of have seen that with Amazon. I think delivering more packages than FedEx this past year, and that's with the slowdown, right, in logistics that we experienced last year compared to 21. Definitely in the next 5 years, I see another major competitor to kind of add into the mix there. Yeah. I also see, again, solutions continuing to sprout up that are unique in their own way, that are solving other challenges as well. One of the things we like to, one of the big selling points for us as well is that our service is completely carbon neutral. And a lot of retailers like that kind of stuff, that we're kind of focused on that. We, with our partnerships with electric delivery companies and so on, electric vehicle manufacturers rather, and so on, and offsetting every single shipment. These are the things that are like just the differentiators, right, in the category that the nationals aren't doing. And ultimately, with e-commerce growing and more and more things being delivered that are traditionally you wouldn't think be delivered to a doorstep as effortlessly as it's being done today, I think that's only going to keep on growing. And there's a lot of really cool technologies that are coming out, a lot of really cool delivery, people delivering stuff with drones. Like, these are just things that as I'm a logistics nerd, honestly. I enjoy these types of things. I like to look at maps and that's just a personal thing I like to do, and to see it all out in the market, I honestly enjoy it. I look at quote unquote the competition as a good thing. If they're growing, that means that the market is growing in general. That means more people are ordering more stuff online, and companies like Amazon have proved that companies like us can come in and in 5 years be delivering more packages than the national. So it's definitely out there. The possibilities, I think, are endless. Short of having drones be delivering packages that are customer shipped on the horizon, for us in particular, the sky's the limit, literally, to how we can get a package to a doorstep, and we're going to continue to explore and innovate to continue improving the customer experience, continuing making deliveries more green. Another thing is obviously price sensitivity, right? How do you make pricing more simpler? These nationals have extremely long and complicated pricing schematics. We don't have anything. We literally have nothing even comparable to that, right? So these are just things that, how do you make it more efficient, more green, with simpler pricing? Again, it's kind of a fever dream, but it's kind of slowly being done as we speak here.
Very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to see. I know you mentioned like Amazon just kind of, taking over the number of packages shipped from FedEx and stuff like that. And I think the more as, I talk to people and in my network and things like that, and even, like yourself, right? I mean, you started out like shipping product, e-commerce stuff, right? And you just kind of saw that hole in the market and wanted to take that over. I mean, I think as more people come from the arena of like actually, shipping stuff out and doing the product, like I think they're going to see like, where can they like make a dent in the, the carrier market and things like that and do different things. So it'd be interesting to see definitely what happens. And I'm curious too to ask you, What are you seeing from, because there's a lot of talk around like service level, right? Like whether it's like same day delivery, next day delivery, 2-day delivery. I mean, obviously, not to keep talking about Amazon, but Amazon kind of set the precedent with Prime, right? They get like basically next day or 2-day delivery on most items. So from your side, I mean, when you're partnering with customers or talking to potential customers, what kind of service levels are being like requested the most? I mean, are you seeing people asking for a lot of next day or in that 2-day window? What's really like the leading one, you would say?
Yeah, I think again, service and speed is very, very much still a major factor in decision making for any of these retailers. I think it's less so than it was like 3-4 years ago, especially with the onset of the pandemic. People kind of got a little more used to not getting packages fast. I mean, that's a personal observation that I've made, where like, we see kind of, that goal of Amazon. And I like to, when I started out ShipX, I always said I wanted to start like an Amazon, what Amazon does, but for non-Amazon orders, right? It's kind of the same way Amazon was able to kind of leverage, every single thing out there, deliver packages. And now they're doing so much of it through their own networks that they built is like astonishing. So I it's still a major factor, but the goal is get it there fast, try to get it there next day, 1 to 2 days, packages that are going coast to coast. It obviously takes a little longer than that, but ultimately it's kind of this like really big balance of price and service. You try to have both as much as you can, and we try to leverage speed to the best of our ability. And obviously, like I said, we bought a trucking company to do that, to be able to do that. Yeah. But I think in general, consumer demand has driven, like I said, faster, but they ultimately want to just get their products, and you got to be able to balance both out, right? Because there's price involved and so on. So we try to always, it's kind of like I said, a balancing act, right? You're treading on water. You got to balance out all those wish list items, right? At the same time.
All right, cool. All right, very interesting stuff, and definitely interesting to hear about ShipX, but also hear about your perspectives on the market out there and what's happening. So I do really appreciate you coming on the show today, Solomon. If people are interested in learning more about ShipX, how can they do that?
Yeah, please follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. On LinkedIn, we're under ShipX Delivery. On Instagram, ShipX Delivery as well. And you can visit us on our website at shipx.com. There's a contact us link where if you're interested in just learning more, feel free to contact us. We'd love to talk to you about what ways we can collaborate and work together potentially.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So Solomon, thank you once again for joining me on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.